A good dad, you're embedded in their heart and you live on with them, if you like, as they pay it forward. So if you think about your boys, they're pretty young, right? But if they're lucky enough to become dads, that'll be embedded, you know, and they'll be better for it.
At the same time, I had been part of the asbestos review program that's a Charles Gardner, and having regular screening because of a potential exposure to asbestos.
That occurred at what age?
3 and 4. So I lived in Wittenoom when I was from 3 until about 4 and a half. Recent scan, which coincided with the symptoms that I started developing, they found growth in my chest. After subsequent more imaging and biopsies, turned out to be a mesothelioma.
Hi, it's Bruce Robinson here from the Fathering Project. I'm here with Dave Mundy, who's a dad, and he's had a bit of a health scare as well, so he's volunteered to talk to us about all of that today. I'm looking forward to it very much. Mate, welcome.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Dave, can you just tell us a bit about yourself, you know, your family, your work?
Yeah, I'm a 50-year-old father of 3. I've been married for the last long time now, I'm going to say. I'm going to get the date wrong, but 24 years to my wife, who I met at vet school. So I'm a veterinary surgeon. We have 3 children, a 19-year-old Amy, 12-year-old Campbell and 11-year-old Hamish. We don't work in the same practice as each other, my wife and I. We get on very well outside of work, but not so good working together. But you know, we have I like to think we have a very loving relationship and beautiful family.
And I know you've had involvement with the Fathering Project at the school, so can you tell us how you got involved and what sort of things you've done? And
yeah, well, the Fathering Project, I became involved with the Fathering Project after seeing a talk by you at my daughter's school, and that was back in 2015. And it kind of struck a chord with me at the time, and you know, I thought that we could institute what you were trying to achieve at that point in the primary school where the boys are at, and that was particularly around starting the kind of Champions Dad, you know, type of group. So, you know, a group of dads within the school community who were organising or facilitating activities between other dads and kids at the school. So we started that pretty much from scratch. Had a really good turnout the first meeting that we had. I think 60 odd dads came along, and you know, who were very interested and you know, very taken by the presentation from the Fathering Project. And you know, so we hit the ground running pretty quickly and with a lot of enthusiasm in the school. We've run all sorts of activities over the years, you know, ranging from simple bike rides and bushwalks, hiking, that kind of thing, to we've had a Winter Olympics and a Summer Olympics at appropriate times.
they involved the dads as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you go?
Yeah, well,
Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah, there was, well, the Winter Olympics, you know, we had sort of water slides and, you know, sliding down the hill on big ice cubes and that type of thing. So it was very, very entertaining. It's holding the dads back sometimes is the hard part. They're very competitive. You know, sort of other things like indoor rock climbing is a really good one because it's very hands-on. You know, dads have to be there, you know, sort of guiding the kids and, you know, watching their achievement or not. And, you know, that's been a really good activity too. But I think the biggest, always the most popular is the camp at school. You know, we've run that every year now for 6 years, and we get in the region of 250 odd dads and kids. And
Is that on the school playground?
Yeah, so the school oval. After school on a Friday night, we tend to make it a little bit easier. We tend to cater for everyone, and then you know, leave the dads and kids to a little bit to their own devices with some organised activities. You know, sometimes we have the police turn up. We always have fires and marshmallows and all that type of thing. But
I take it the police and the fires isn't
yeah.
in response to a call.
Right. Fortunately, so far, you know, we've had a few neighbours who are a little bit grumbly about the extra noise on a Friday night. But yeah, aside from that, but one of the biggest things out of that, I think, is that, you know, as much as you get this really good interaction between the dads and kids, you know, something that we found at Kensington is seeing, you know, 50 or 60 dads sitting around talking is, you know, that you just, when I first started at school with Amy, you know, 15 years ago, that just didn't happen. You didn't see dads there, and or there were very few. You were looked on as a little bit unusual, but that's not the case anymore, which is a really good thing. Yeah.
Dave, one of the interesting things, and I have to admit, I never predicted this. I was always thinking about how dads can help their kids and kids who don't have a dad and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But with the fathering project and the dads groups, it's been spectacular the way dads have got to know other dads, because it's well known that men in Australia are very lonely. I mean, I've got plenty of mates, but you know, in terms of human engagement, not so much, especially if things don't go well. And I'm interested to know, like, all these dads, have you got to know each other as friends, and you can talk about being dads? I don't know, how's it work?
Absolutely, and I think that, you know, from the full range, from you know, having that just casual contact in the community. I mean, our suburb is very much a little community, and just walking down the street and being able to say hello and stopping for a chat and at the park, you know, that type of thing is fantastic. But right through to, you know, on some of the dads' occasions that we've had, you know, specifically talking about difficulties and questions about raising the kids, and you know, how do you do this, and how do you cope with the 15-year-old who doesn't want to have anything to do with you, and that type of thing. And I think that, and I like the concept too, that you've got all these dads in the community who are keeping an eye out on everything to a degree. You know, they see one of my kids acting up at the park or anything like that. I'm happy for them to just you know, maybe run the eye over them. And,
a strong
so
word.
Maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Like a strong suggestion.
That's right. And you know, I think it has really built and strengthened the community as well. Yeah.
Has it helped you to be a better dad? I mean, it sounds to me like you're already a pretty good dad because you were at your daughter's school event, etc. But, you know, have you learnt stuff that's helped you to be a better dad?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, I had a lot of time. I've had a lot of time at home with all my kids, and that's partly through my wife's work and my work and the way that it's been structured. She had a lot of study and things to do, and so I spent a lot of time at home, particularly with Amy early on. But I think you know, some of that time, you know, I guess one of the big things I learned is making that time kind of genuine time with them, you know, and that it's not, you know, you're not at home babysitting the kids, you're there, you know, actively participating with them, and you know, I think if could be anything ranging from sitting on the floor. I can remember having teddy bears picnics at 6 o'clock in the morning with Amy because she's awake and ready to go, or, you know, with the boys, I don't think I've hardly missed an opportunity to, if they say, do you want to go to the park and have a kick of the footy? Well, it's always yes, you know, regardless of how you might be, you know, sort of feeling, but you'll feel, you know, I think it's just something that I've always tried to do. Yeah.
What about communication skills? Because we do talk a lot about that with the Fathering Project, you know, like learning how to talk to, especially teenagers, but young kids as well, in a way that's not preachy. And now you've got a 19-year-old daughter, and you said she's quite good at engaging, but do you feel like you're able to talk to her about life's issues and her issues and how she's going?
I think so. I think we particularly took up, and that was certainly from the Fathering Project conversation about talking. We talk a lot in the car. There was a lot of trips to school where we're sort of side by side talking, and I think a lot, you know, that works particularly well with Amy, and it does work, you know, particularly well with one of the boys. One of them's a bit, he's much harder to get anything out of, but you know, I think he's normal for his age, but I think it's a very sort of, I think we take different approaches with different kids as to what works for them. You know, with that particular one, Campbell, he loves fishing, and we fish a lot, and a lot of that time fishing might be spent pretty quietly, not much being said, but the conversation will gently flow the longer that we're out there for.
Mate, so I know you've had a bit of a health scare, so what sort of symptoms did you have? Or tell us how that...
I guess combination of things. Probably 4 or 5 months ago I started having a bit of difficulty swallowing. So eating, for the most part, was okay, but I'd come across certain things where I just couldn't swallow them as efficiently as I previously had been able to. Also had some unusual tingling in my arm and a few different bits and pieces, which I didn't pay necessarily a whole lot of attention to. I had been to see my GP who, we'd started to organise some tests. I guess that, but historically, at the same time, I had been part of the asbestos review program at Sir Charles Gardner, and having regular screening because of a potential exposure to asbestos.
That occurred at what age?
3 and 4. So I lived in Wittenoom when I was from 3 until about 4 and a half. Yeah.
Just any of the blokes watching, Wittenoom's a town in Western Australia that mined asbestos and had it all over the town, school playgrounds and everything. Yeah, so I could see why you'd have been worried. Yeah, so carry on.
Yeah, so part of that screening program is I had X-rays, chest X-rays or CT scans for about 15 or 16 years, and unfortunately in the most recent scan, which coincided with the symptoms that I started developing, they found a growth in my chest, which subsequently, after subsequent more imaging and biopsies, turned out to be a mesothelioma.
Yeah, are you happy to tell the blokes what that is?
So mesothelioma is a type of cancer that I guess most commonly occurs, I think, in the lining of the lungs. It is known to be, I think it's pretty much 100% caused by exposure to asbestos. It is, to my knowledge, and I've been advised so far that it's not a curable type of cancer, and excuse me, one that has certainly put a short timeline on my life.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, mate.
Yeah, I think I don't. I'm sure that anyone can understand that it comes as a fairly massive shock, and I suppose coming from a veterinary background, we're fairly in tune with the day-to-day workings of different types of cancer, not mesothelioma, but certainly understand what it means and what it, I guess suddenly being told that there is that your life is not necessarily going to go on for as long as you thought it might, and is very confronting.
A matter of interest, was your wife with you when you got the news?
The very first news.
I guess you had the scan, so...
Yeah, I had the scan and then I got a phone call, and I missed about 4 phone calls on my phone. And I got the phone call and, that told me, that there was a growth there. Not much detail, and I still had to have, a few tests and things. But, I guess straight away you sort of tend to immediately think the worst. And the first person that I called was my wife, and she came home from work, and Amy was at home at the time, and we talked to her about it straight away. We didn't tell the boys because partly because I didn't want to, but also needed more certainty as to what was going on, rather than telling them one thing and it being something else. So once we had the confirming tests...
So you had a biopsy.
So I had a biopsy, believe it or not, on the day of Campbell's graduation, and was very appreciative of the team that got me in early on the day for the biopsy, and I think it was something like, it was through a scope, and they took 19 biopsies, and I was awake, ready to go out the door at 2 o'clock that afternoon, back at home before I even came home from school, ready to go to the graduation that night.
So a bit of a shock. You said Amy was at home at the time. How did she go with it?
She was, very shocked and obviously devastated, really. And I think that it took us. It's hard having conversations when only part of the family knows what's going on, and that became a very much, as much as it was leading up to Christmas, and we didn't particularly want to tell the boys right on Christmas, and so we avoided that and had a really fun Christmas, and kept avoiding the subject until it got to a point where it was just, I just couldn't hold it in. Needed to tell them, and I guess you have this kind of feeling in your life, that in your mind, that it's going to be terrible for them and a life-defining moment, and it's that everything beforehand will be the good times, and everything afterwards wouldn't be. But funnily enough, it wasn't really like that.
What did they do?
They were devastated, and they cried, and we all cried together. But 10 minutes later, they were running around the house swinging cricket bats at each other. And I'm looking at Sharon thinking, I think I've undersold this to them. I think that's just the way that kids work. And we've been back to it multiple times since then. Having the conversation, and but I think what they don't want to do, and I guess what I don't want to do too much, is dwell on it. Is to be it constantly at the front of my mind and the front of the family's mind, if you like.
You mentioned the word life-defining, and we'll come back to that, I think, in a few minutes. But I think everyone would like to know what's ahead of you. What treatment you're going to have. And
So I've had early this year. I've had a 6-week period of radiation, so 30 doses of that daily, which was perhaps not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I think it kind of creeps up on you, and that by the end of that I was pretty tired, and it was a little bit harder to keep up the game face, if you like, and keep going through the sort of the daily routines. Since then, I've had a reprieve, I like to think of it, for 6 weeks or so, where I don't have to do anything, which is nice after not having any appointments or any kind of schedule. I'm having repeat scans, PET scan and CT, actually in a couple of days' time, which will let me know where I'm at, and then after that the plan is to start immunotherapy, which will be a fortnightly IV infusion at home, which is again nice. Not that I dislike the hospital, but it's nice to not be going backwards and forwards.
Anything? Well, I'm not sure that the blokes listening would realise this is something we discussed over coffee, and it's small comfort. But if you're going to get mesothelioma in the world, then this is the place to get it. It's the world leading centre. Sadly, because of the number of cases, but happily because it's been able to make some progress, as you know. So
certainly that's one thing that I'm very appreciative of in the situation, is just knowing that not that I would be, I'm not one to second guess anyway, but just knowing that you're in the best hands, and that I'm not worried about that I'm getting the right treatment or what the treatment should be.
Would you need to be in Boston or somewhere?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that one of the registrars said to me early on, "You probably go home and Google all of this stuff and read all about it." And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to. I don't want to know about it. I don't particularly want to know about the ins and outs of it all. I know that I'm in the best hands, and all of that negative stuff that would no doubt appear in a Google search, I don't want to know. I don't want to hear it, because I guess I don't want to dwell on it, and I really want to focus on enjoying what time I've got.
So we'll ask you about the kids again in a minute as a dad, but just in terms of yourself, I mean, what are you afraid of most?
Yeah, I guess probably my biggest fear, and you can probably help me with this, given your background, is wondering what's going to happen after when I'm not here. Am I leaving my job half done? Are the kids going to be stronger or weaker for the experience? How's
You got me going now.
how's my wife going to cope? And I guess you have a million lessons or stories or things that you'd like to tell, but I guess it's knowing that they're not going to happen. They're not going to be able to tell those stories, and maybe that's good for kids. Don't have to hear them or listen to me, tell them one more time how they should do something. But it's that sort of unknown. I think that I know they're strong kids, but I guess I really feel like it's a job left half done.
Yeah, so you asked me about it, and I've seen this hundreds of times in my job, and I'm sure the blokes listening know I'm a lung specialist, so I have to break the bad news to people, which actually was the trigger for the fathering project. Having blokes, honestly, having a man opposite of you, a bloke who's worked hard, and then just as the kids are kind of older or whatever, they get the bad news and they think, you can't get that time back again. Why didn't someone tell me when I was young that this is important? And that, I think, is the answer to your question. And that's exactly the fear that a lot of dads have when they confront impending death if they've got cancer and it's not a curable cancer. And I'll tell you exactly how it works. And we've talked about this, but just really as much for the blokes that are watching and listening. If, as a dad, the job is undone and you leave this planet with your job undone and you haven't handled it well, that is exactly when the kids can be damaged by it, And they say that, of course it's about grief afterwards. Grief handled badly does make people bitter. And you don't have to watch, if you watch the news, you see all bitter, they'll always find, and no disrespect to the news services, they'll always find someone who's bitter and blaming someone and angry, and they can live a whole life of bitterness. But, and this is really important, because I've seen it so often, when it's handled well, it makes kids not bitter, but better. Yeah. And sure, they would want dad to be around, but you actually, by being a good dad, you're embedded in their heart and you live on with them, if you like, as they pay it forward. So if you think about your boys, they're pretty young, right? But if they're lucky enough to become dads, that'll be embedded, and they'll be better for it, actually. Because a lot of people think, dads, and I used to think this too, you're Superman, nothing's going to happen to me. But that's not how life goes. And so by having your heart softened and by learning the richness of life, you can become better. But also, Dave, the way you've spent time with your kids, it embeds in them a sense of worth. This is a key point about the Fathering Project's suggestions to people. And I'll sort of finish with this, come back to you because I don't want to talk too much, but sometimes in the Fathering Project they have a schools thing, they think, we're getting advice on how to talk to the kids about sex and everything, which is true, strategic advice. But fundamentally, you bother to go camping with them, you take them on dad dates, it's that you bother. You could be busy, you could work 14 hours a day in your vet practice, but you bother to, teddy bear picnic at 6 a.m. You bother, and what that says to a child is, gee, my dad's busy, he doesn't need to spend time with me, he's got all his mates. I must be worth spending time with. And that feeling of worth, embedded in the kid's heart, if you're a good dad, carries on when you're gone. And if you, just to be blunt, if it doesn't work well and you go soon, that carries on. If you get lucky enough to get more and more and more time, it carries on. But whatever the time is, it carries on. It's such an important point. My point in saying this is every dad I know has that same fear, and I reassure them that if they are a good dad and they handle the talking to them and etc. well, then they pay it forward. They can pay it forward. They're better people, and they can then pay it forward. So I appreciate that fear. And of course, they'd love to have you around for a long time. Of course, that's what grief is. It's about loss. But you're worried about the long-term impact on them, and I'm just reassuring you that I suspect they'll be better people for it. So I have to ask I hope you don't mind, ask how your partner's going with all this as well. It's often hard for the caring, loving partner as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard, very hard on her. I think that she's a very strong person and puts on a very strong and brave exterior, and but even for her, I think she's definitely struggling, and I guess we're having our ups and downs, and I think fortunately at the moment there's probably more ups than downs, which is good. But we're having to, I guess we talk a lot together about things and about the future and about how that will look, and but again, always try not to dwell too much on the negative.
How have the blokes in the father's group, dad's group at school reacted to? They know about it, by the way. I guess is the first thing.
Yeah, I think they, certainly my closest friends within the group are, very shocked and kind of disbelieving, I guess, about how it's turned out. And I think that it's an unfortunate but useful message, I guess, to the others that your time isn't guaranteed. I think that all the things that you think that you would, I can do that. We'll do that next year. We'll go and visit that place, or we'll go fishing here, or we'll go to the footy in Melbourne, or that type of thing. All of a sudden, it all becomes when can I squeeze all these things in? And it's. I think it brings to the point that if you're going to make that kind of conscious decision to be a better father, then the best time to start is straight away. And whether it be small or sort of big steps, I just think you just need to start as soon as you can. And if you're lucky enough to have your kids as in kindy or pre-primary or that kind of age or earlier even, then I think starting now is the best time to do as much as you can with them, because you'll never regret it.
One of the things that woke me up when I was a young dad is someone was giving a talk and they said, if you had 6 months to live, what would you like to do? And so people were sitting around thinking, whatever it is, go to Uluru or something, go to a grand final or test match, I don't know, whatever it is, everyone's thinking their own thoughts. Take my wife to Paris. I don't know what people were thinking, but I was thinking whatever I thought. And then the person said, what's stopping you? Do it now, do it anyway. I thought, you're living as though you had 6 months to live or something is actually quite good. And that's how people used to live, of course. People used to be uncertain, kids would die, wars and bubonic plague and Spanish flu, and lots of, no antibiotics or anything back then. So people used to live in the shadow of uncertainty, driving them to live their life a certain way. And I found that really actually enriched my life. And I find that with my patients too. I don't know if you've found it. It sounds like you have, but you start to notice things and appreciate every day as a gift. Rather than as something to be taken for granted. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but... No,
absolutely, and I think I sort of went through this phase a little bit of looking at everything as, is this the last time I'm going to do something? Whether it be going to the cricket with the kids, or, you think of it, and I've thought it, but, more recently I've changed my kind of way of thinking about that, and I think it's that, when's the next opportunity to, to do that? And, we've been lucky enough to live our life my wife and I have always had this sort of philosophy of doing everything. If we get an opportunity to do something, we do it. We don't, sometimes financially it hasn't been the best thing to do, but if an idea's come up or a trip's come up or anything like that, we always go. And, I like to think that, our motto has definitely very much been, it's all about the journey. We're not thinking about where we're headed, we're just having fun as we go along. And, I'm really thankful for that now, because we have had some amazing experiences together as a family, and hopefully quite a few more. And, I think that, it comes from the same point of view as the, don't waste a moment with your kids, because, you might not ever get that opportunity again. So I think that you just got to take your chance at every opportunity. Yeah.
Someone told me once that all those trips and stuff you do with your kids is like a bank account, and you're putting money in the account. And if you don't get a chance to live out your life like you're facing, that's money in the bank. They got, whereas dads who just work and never do that, there's no money in the bank. Yeah. And if they happen to get the bad news, the bank account's empty. The kids have got nothing to spend, if you like. Whereas all those trips, and it's about making memories and stuff. Yeah. And mate, it might be good if it just like dads are watching, and maybe some of them will be busy and what have you. But in terms of seizing the day, because you never know, anything you want to say to them,
I think that you have to seize the day. You have to make the changes in your life, make the changes in your work, if you can. Whether it's knocking off an hour early, whether it's having mornings off so that you can go to school and drop the kids off, or pick them up from school, or head to the park and have a kick. The kids, it doesn't have to be a fantastic, awesome, sort of experience every time you do it. It's as simple as just being with them and, doing the simple things. And I just think that my message would be to make sure you take the opportunity straight away. Don't wait, because time could run out.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your kids? In case you're not around to say it yourself later on.
Yeah. I guess that this is pretty, it's not hard to say, but it's hard to express without falling apart. But to my kids, I'm so proud of you. I couldn't be more proud. I love you all as much as you could ever possibly imagine. I wish that I could be here forever, annoying you, but if that's not the case, then just remember how proud I am of you and how lucky I am to have been your dad.
Mate, you've been very kind to talk to us. Appreciate your honesty, and wish you all the best. I'm sure every bloke watching this will as well. I hope the treatment goes well and you get the best result possible. But if you don't, then thanks very much. And I think we all feel too. Your kids are lucky to have you as a dad, mate.
Well, thank you.
I think they'll realise that, and that'll carry them forward as well.
I hope so. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk as well, and all the help that your inspiration has given me over the years as well. Thank you.
I think you'll inspire a lot of dads, mate.
I hope so.
Okay, so dads, look, we'll finish that, but thanks for watching, and please get in touch with us at the Fathering Project and contact us through Facebook, and get a dads group going in your school if you don't already have one, and get involved.